found a way for universities and university students to decrease dropout rate, increase GPA and increase well-being. We have data of over 15,000 students now that shows just that.
Hi, I'm Michele Schippers, Professor of Behavior and Performance Management at the Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University Rotterdam. And today I want to talk about the effect of an intervention that has increased the study success of our students by 22%.
We had in our school, the Rotterdam School of Management, a huge problem. We had a 50% dropout rate of our first year students. I thought it would be very important to find a solution for this problem. So I did my homework and I found that there was an intervention that can help our students. And it involves positive psychology and goal setting. Goal setting is a theory that has been around since the 1960s of last century.
So basically my dream is to enhance the performance of all people in the world to become their best possible self. And I devised an intervention that makes sure that people write about their ideal self and they write about their ideal, what their life will look like if they don't change anything.
Why don't we let our students write about life goals? Big goals that they can achieve, and maybe that will help them too. And it involves three things, 3 P's. Passion, plan and make it public. Finding your values and passion is not the result of goal setting, but you have to start with it. So this is the basic. Then you make a plan to achieve it and then you make it public. Sounds easy, right? So this picture went viral a couple of years ago. It's a homeless boy making his homework at the light of McDonald's. He have a father. His father died a couple of years ago and his mother makes less than $2 a day in a grocery store. This boy had a goal. He wanted to become a policeman and make the streets a little bit safer. And that made him very resourceful. That's why he found a way to do his homework with only one pencil and only one piece of paper.
And the idea of this intervention is to increase not only study success but also the well-being of students. So what we saw is that students had a lot of problems. Their well-being is low, performance and retention was an issue, and diversity and inclusion is an issue, for instance. So what happened in our school, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more generally later, but what happened in our school, I had a class of 800 students and I was teaching them organizational behavior. And I had these 800 students, and at the end of the class I asked program management how many of these students remain at the end of the year. And they said only half of them. And I was flabbergasted. Only half of them, 400 students, leave at the end of the year, of the first academic year. This is a waste of talent, I think. So I wanted to do something about it. And that's when I started thinking about how to help students gain higher grades. And at first I thought, okay, let's make sure that they learn academic thinking. And I gave them a lot of, I said, for starters, nothing is obligatory in our class. And I had 100% of the students showed up at our classes. Which was interesting because I didn't say it was, I said it was not obligatory. And I said, well, if you want to do good at the exam, it's really important to attend the classes, because I do it differently than other schools do. Because what I said, I had, for instance, a video case, and I asked them, okay, what kind of leadership do you see here? And then I asked them, okay, can you give examples from the video? But this was something students really needed to get trained on, because there was not one good answer. Because some students saw a different leadership style than other students, and they had good arguments for it. And both could be equally good.
Many of us, but also our students at the Rotterdam School of Management, have a problem in finding their goals. They have too many goals. They have conflicting goals. They have goals that their parents set for them. They say, well, why don't you go and study management or economics or anything else? This is not easy to find your goals. So I found an intervention that could help do just that. And see what it's like, and if it maybe can help me as well. So my first goal I set was becoming a professor. My second goal was to try to have a kid. And this is actually my son, so the second goal also worked out. My third goal was to become a world champion in Taekwondo. That didn't happen yet. I also have a fourth goal, having a good work-life balance. Obviously that also didn't work out. So what does this intervention look like? Well, we ask students a lot of questions and they have to write about them. So there's something about the act of writing it down and seeing it in front of you that's really important in this intervention. Kind of a final question we ask them. We want you to dream. Think about if there are no constraints at all. What would you do? What would your ideal life look like? Come to realize that there's some kind of an integrated identity to be gained by this goal setting. So there's an ideal self, and from this ideal self, top down, they can make goals. But there is a problem. Just finding the why won't get you there. If you know what your values and passions are, so today you're here and you want to get from A to B, how do you get there? So then we move from a passion to a plan. So you need to figure out how to make it happen. What we ask students to do is, okay, now you've wrote about your ideal self, about your ideal life. I want you to extract a couple of goals, like say 6 goals from that. You write them down and then you order them. What is my most important goal? This is the goal you should spend most time on. So we want them to write about that. Also if-then plans. If this happens, I will do this. So for instance, if a fellow student asks me to drink a beer on the day of the exam or the day before the exam, I will say no, I will drink a beer with you after the exam. So that's what we ask them to do in this second part. Because if you have a goal without a plan, it's just a wish. I can ask a student, why do you want to become rich? Why is this an important goal for you? And then a student said to me, well, it's because I want to be rich because I want to reform the educational system in Brazil. This was a student from Brazil. But if you've made your plan, it's still not enough. There's a third part. And the third part is making it public. So what are you going to do? Are you going to carve out time? I hope you will all start to do this and all find more meaning and purpose in life.
Our management said, okay, we are going to make sure that we hire the bar even. So students had to have a certain number of credits at the end of the year. So credits are really important in our school. I know in the US it's a slightly different system, but each course has credits and you need to have these credits to pass and go to a second year. So they hired the bar for the number of credits that students had to gain. And then we had to help them, and I said, oh, why don't we give them a life crafting intervention where students write about their ideal life, if they don't, the ideal life if there were no constraints at all. And we also asked them, for instance, what did you like to do as a kid? What would you like to learn? What would you like to unlearn? What are the things that are really important for you in your social life? What kind of people do you want to hang out with in your free time or in general? Do you want to start a family? So these are all things that people can start to make goals on. So I asked them all those questions, and after that I said, okay, let's now you have talks about your ideal life and about a life that's going to happen if you don't change anything. If you want to make any goals, what are your goals? So in the second part they had to sleep a night or a couple of nights, and then they had to make the second part. What is the most important goal that you want to start with? List 6 to 8 goals, and then after that you start with your number 1 goal. And how are you why is this goal important to you? How are you going to reach this goal? What do you need to do to reach this goal? And if you don't reach it, what are you going to do it? Or if some problem comes up, what are you going to do? So they had to make all these plans and backup plans and goal achievement plans basically. And at the end of the academic year, I tested, but it was really interesting because after the first trimester, we have trimesters, the program management said, hey, what's going on? These students are doing much better than in other years. And then everybody came up with a nice explanation, and I said, but wait a minute, we did this life crafting intervention, so maybe students start doing better because of this. And at the end of the year I tested it, and then I found out there was a 22% increase in study success and 22% less dropout rates. So that was really nice. But then we found out that a lot of students still had well-being problems. And there is also this trend to go towards more AI-supported interventions. So we thought, why don't we make a chatbot for students so that they can make it more interactive? So for instance, if they have these goals, did you reach your goal? Did you have time to work on your goal? So we sent them basically interactive goal diaries. So if you didn't work on your goal or you postponed things, what happened? What can we help you to reach those goals? And interestingly, the chatbot was given to students in the year that the corona crisis came to hit. So we started in September 2019. We gave them a chatbot, and then in March 2020, the corona crisis started in the Netherlands. So all these students were given the chance, do you want to work with a chatbot? So we did a randomized controlled trial. They only did life crafting, or they did a chatbot and life crafting. So for instance, students would say, hey, I feel so stressed out today, and or the chatbot asked, did you successfully complete what you were trying to accomplish? And the student would say, well, there's sometimes so much work to do, I don't know, and it didn't work out. And then the chatbot would ask, okay, do you want to do, for instance, cognitive behavioral therapy? It would explain what it is very briefly, and then if the students wanted to engage with it, then engage with it. So this was really nice. So we had, in the chatbot, we had several elements. We called it an Iki app, from Ikigai, is purpose in life. So we had a goal diary to monitor goal progress. We asked them about their well-being and mental health. So they would also be offered cognitive behavioral therapy, which helps in a lot of occasions, especially for highly educated people. And it really is aimed at people's thoughts, emotions and behaviors. So for instance, it's been found to help people when they have an addiction, when they have anxiety disorders, when they have bipolar disorder, phobia, schizophrenia, suicidal ideation even, and depression. So these are all the things that are that cognitive behavioral therapy is aimed to help. And we did do also follow up with students. We asked them if it helped them or what they thought about the chatbot. And there was even one student who said, well, actually he wanted to commit suicide because he was in such a low state. And the chatbot urged him to go and get some help. So that's what he did, and he is now luckily studying in France. So these are the things that we are really, really happy about. At least I'm really happy about. And study skills, for instance, a student who would say, hey, I really have a problem studying because it's their first year. They just changed towards the academic system, and they are then asked, do you really want this? Do you want to be engaged in this? Interestingly, we measured in 3 points in that year, if their purpose, psychological well-being, perseverance and goal-directed study behavior. And interestingly, at the end of the year, for all of these 4, so purpose, psychological well-being, perseverance and goal-directed study behavior, there was a significant difference. So students who did life crafting, they were slacking off a little bit in terms of well-being, but the people who did life crafting as well as a chatbot, they were scoring higher at the end of the year on all 4 elements. So that was really nice to see as an additional, let's say, over and above the 22% increase in study success. Interestingly also, if you look at life crafting also made sure that the gender gap closed by 98%. So we had men doing less well than women in our school, but that gap closed by 98%. And the ethnicity gap, which was in effect a bigger effect to start with, so there was a huge gap in performance, and that closed actually because people who were already doing well were doing slightly a little bit better, and then students from ethnic minority students, they really did much better. So the ethnicity gap closed 38%, and in year 2 it closed 93%. So it's really, I think, a validated way of helping people, but I think personally that it's a much broader audience, because it's pretty scalable intervention, but it's also generic. It's not only for students. We write, people who just lost their job or want to go for a new job or just have their pension, or so have in a fork in their life. They don't know what to do anymore, or they are not happy with what they're currently doing. They might want to do a life crafting intervention and even use a chatbot to both work on making this change happen in their life, but also make sure that their well-being is kept on par. So my ideal would be that it's a part of the educational package of both students, but also when people come into a company or work in a healthcare industry or wherever they work, that it's being used on a regular basis, or people can have access to it and use it, or maybe the whole company can start using it to see if this really helps both their well-being and performance. So what is really nice part is also that the third part of the intervention is that people write a statement that and have their picture taken together. So in our school, for instance, there's we call that I will statement. So you have a photo taken of a student, and the student, for instance, writes, I will help build a better world. I will write the story for the future generations. I will encourage people to become the best version of themselves. So these are all examples, and my I will statement is, I will inspire people to find their ikigai. And I hope as many people, millions of people worldwide, will find their ikigai this way. Thank you very much.